Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. We're going to give a couple minutes for everybody to kind of trickle in. So get your coffees, get your water, get your popcorn. We got a doozy ahead of us. We will officially jump in. We're going to start a little earlier this time because we have a lot of material to cover. So we're going to jump in at 1:33 on the dot. So we'll give a couple more minutes for people to trickle in. Hope all the participants in the California and Hawaii area are all okay. Seems like you at least have Wi-Fi so far. So our thoughts and prayers are with you for sure. Hey, Eric from London. Thanks for coming by. All right. One more minute. See if we can get any extra participants in the last minute. All right, let's jump into this. Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Northbeam Media Buying Webinar. I am Luca Taormina. I am the Senior Partner Managers here at the webinar. So if you know me, chances are you are involved with an agency, and I am helping you help your clients use Northbeam to really make data-driven decisions around all of your cross-platform attribution. Today, we got a special guest, Katherine Kane from Tenuity's here. Is really going to dive into a lot of what we can do with content and streaming services. So we're going to get in that towards the end. But as always, we like to kick off this webinar with a sense of how things are looking in the market, what we're seeing, what's happening, and what we can conclude based on the data that we've sourced here at Northbeam. So jumping into the data, we're gonna start this off with a woosah, everybody. I know CPMs are going up, and I know that the heat is on, but that is to be expected for this time of year. We know that everybody is getting locked and loaded and getting ready for that big Q4 push. So the volume of advertisers is on the rise. Special shout out to Meta and Facebook this week, as they officially, for the first time, have broke the record, yielding 70% of the total average budget shared for advertisers that's happening across the most common platforms. So for those of you that are in the stock market, this isn't a financial advice channel, but things are looking real good for Meta. And for those of you that have heard the naysayers post iOS 14 that Meta's on the way out, it can't be what it once was, those are the brands that didn't have brand guidelines. Those are the brands that didn't have what it takes to make it in the real world of marketing. But for those that can hang, for those that stand by something and have a real value prop to bring, Meta still stands super strong. Jumping in, also a big noticeable metric that we're seeing here are the CPMs of TikTok are really going up as well. There's a lot of reasons to that. Seasonality can be a big part of it, but I also think brands more and more are recognizing the top of funnel brand awareness opportunity that really comes with the TikTok channel. And despite the real-time conversions or the one-day attributions, brands more and more are leveraging platforms like Northbeam and other sources to really get a sense on the impact of what TikTok is really having on their brand awareness. And that quote, TikTok made me buy it, is getting stronger and stronger by the day. Google and YouTube both seem to be pretty down this week. There is no real conclusive takeaway as to why that might be. So I'd be really curious if anybody has any insights as why they suspect Google and Pinterest, or Google and YouTube, could be down, while Pinterest continues just sort of to live in its own world and operate in its own capacity. So the main takeaway that we get from these metrics, and hold on, I want to jump on the next slide. Before we dive into that, actually, let's dive into the industries that we're seeing. So again, electronics is still on the rise. It's actually been on the rise now for a few weeks in a row. So don't let this 3.3 fool you. This is like a cumulative nearly 15% as of the last 3 weeks. So that back to school purchasing cycle is still live. I find it super funny that babies are actually up 11% from last week's webinar. We were suspecting that 9-month window that perhaps everybody was benefiting from the baby showers of that time. And just a week after, we see a huge surge in that industry. So I think the diapers from the baby showers are up, and it's time to re-up on all that as your child is ever growing. Increase in jewelry as well. Health and wellness, that's really interesting, as usually towards the tail end of the summer, health and wellness brands, people kind of give up on their fitness, and then it takes that January, new year, new me to kick in. But it's really exciting to see that people are prioritizing their health and wellness in this time as well. The major takeaway that we can really have from these analytics is that the competition is on the rise. The advertising volume is increasing substantially, even though the conversions aren't entirely there. This is because we know that Q4 is the time of year where consumer behavior changes. And with advertising being on the rise, I know this is such a competitive industry where, we look at every other brand, everybody that's driving up CPMs as our competition. But in actuality, there's kind of this macro psychology that occurs when advertisers are really pushing advertisements. Increase overall selling and increase drivers from the brands that are most engaged with their most active customers. So what this does in a way is it kind of has this overarching impact on everybody and makes people more and more comfortable with purchasing things online and interacting with the ads that they're seeing. So the overall consensus is to hunker down, drive your engagement now. The purchasing cycles are on the way. And be around for the Q4 for those brands that have that ability. Tighten up your marketing funnel, understand your attribution, understand your content requirements, understand really what it is that you can do and how you are going to look at your brand between now and January. And then we'll circle back to that Q5 strategy, as it comes around. I hope for those of you that are joining this webinar, now we got up to 48. Let's go. Love to see it. Hopefully we can get to 50 as we get into the Tenuity information, because that's really powerful. I learned a lot actually about it. But for those of you that aren't able to attend this webinar, we also have a weekly newsletter that goes out that's providing general updates on the industry as well. So a couple of things that are highlighted on this newsletter that you should check out. First and foremost is we still have space for our Media Buyer Summit, on September 15th. The Tenuity team is actually the latest guest that's going to be added to that summit as well. So again, industry experts across the board. You want your media buyers to know what's happening in the industry. When you're speaking to a brand, they are trusting you as an agency partner to know what's going on and what are some new things to explore. And it's summits like this that are really going to uncover some things that you need to know. Additionally, if you want to get tips on GA4 with Ben Kruger, that's on the newsletter as well. Shout out to the Ridge for donating $50,000 to Hawaii for its relief efforts. Pretty interesting article where they split tested ChatGPT versus a copywriter to see how those results came out. Also, there's an article on Barry Hutt's views on multi-advertiser ads on Instagram. And one of the more untapped resources of the industry are actually the job openings that we're providing in our newsletter as well. So Northbeam is growing substantially. We have some of our own, but even from partners across the industry, we have several job openings that you can explore, refer to your friends. We're all looking for work. All right, so without further ado, we are now going to get into it. So again, we have Katherine Kane on the call from Tenuity. Katherine, how you doing? How you living? Thank you for coming by.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to share this information with you guys.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. If you want to take over the screen, I know you have a few shares that you want to provide, but let's kick things off from the beginning, the fundamentals. When planning for video streaming and TV campaigns for the first time, what do you look at? What do you do? What should brands be aware of?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I can take over the screen share if that works.
Yeah. I will stop share if that helps. Oh.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm Katherine. I'm a director of client strategy at Tenuity. I have really spent my career focusing on streaming video and audio. So I started in the space back in 2017 at an agency called Bliss Point Media, and really happy to still be part of the Bliss Point family, which was acquired by Tenuity a couple years ago. And yeah, in that time, the landscape has really developed a lot. It's still in many ways an emerging channel. Things are constantly shifting. So it's really part of my job and all of my colleagues' jobs to stay on top of the trends and stay on top of how to think about the channel. So with this presentation, I really just want to walk you through how we think about it, how we think about measurement, how we think about buying streaming video and audio, and how to make it an impactful piece of your media mix.
Amazing.
So number one, just understanding streaming video. So it's still really a growing medium. It still year over year makes up more and more of a consumer's time spent. And that's growing every year. That's been doing so for the whole time that I've been involved and is expected to continue to do so. Streaming video is expected to surpass traditional TV very, very soon. You can see that in the graph on the bottom right. This has been something that's been a long time coming. For a long time, streaming was emerging and linear was still the whale. That's really changing pretty rapidly. And then to support that, just zeroing in a bit, that's even more true in a lot of the most important demos. So for adults 18 plus, streaming video is expected to surpass linear very soon. But for ages 25 to 54, which I know for a lot of advertisers is really that sweet spot, that shift has already occurred. So with some of the most important demos, we're already seeing streaming video being the really very important and some of the most important video media you can buy.
Wow. Yeah, I'm reminded of the quote where it says, we spend all day on our medium screen and little screen just to go home and look at our big screen. And having the advertisements in that placement during that transition, obviously with the metrics you're showing, it's a super impactful moment to kind of connect with your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that's how I operate. And then thinking about audio as well. So we're seeing a very similar trend with audio where time spent with podcasts and digital audio has surpassed traditional radio. So people are not just listening to their local stations anymore, they're tuning in via their favorite streaming platform, whether it be Spotify or Pandora or Sirius, etc. And that digital adoption, it's really skewing young, it's skewing affluent, and digital audio is a great opportunity for advertisers who want to capture that young, affluent audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I live on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I know that's a bit of a cliche, but it's also amazing information. And as I look around my room, half of what I have are sponsors of JRE.
Yeah. That's another great thing, a good point about the audio audience. We find that they're extremely loyal. And with podcasts in particular, an endorsement from a host can really go a long way with their audience.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about how audio and video are important pieces of the pie, but how do we buy them? You might get a lot of different answers from a lot of different people. I know if I asked, any marketer, they might say, you have to go programmatic, you have to go in a biddable environment, or you have to go direct. You have to go guaranteed, et cetera. You're going to get a lot of different answers. We here at Tenuity we like to think about this as different techniques of buying as tools in our toolbox. We really like to use all of the different ways of buying for our campaigns and structure our campaigns depending on the needs of the advertisers. So for a more brand focused advertiser, we might go more toward the top of this waterfall. So we might go toward guaranteed media, whether that be programmatic or direct. Those high CPMs might be justified if we have a particular content we want to get into, if there's a particular audience we want to saturate, that might be the way to go.
Can you give
Or
examples of
go ahead.
guaranteed direct and the general market just to have a sense of what they are?
Yeah. So guaranteed direct, that's media that we might buy upfront. So at the upfronts, you might hear about those when the network puts on their big shows every year, and for agencies and clients to see what the next year of programming is going to bring. We do transact in that. So even though we are in some ways still a very performance focused agency, we are transacting at the upfronts. We have boots on the ground to get a sense of like what we should be guaranteeing for advertisers in the coming year. And for some advertisers, that really makes sense. That maybe they have a particular spokesperson who is in a show where we want to get inventory in that particular show, or they have a high seasonality. Maybe we have an advertiser who really needs to be saturating the market in Q4 at Christmas time, for instance. In that case, we may want to go the guaranteed route.
Gotcha.
Our bread and butter is really the items highlighted in purple here. So publisher direct and private marketplace. That's where most of our advertisers, I'm going to say, are living at least most of the year, and that's where we're negotiating. We're negotiating CPMs directly with the publishers to access non-guaranteed streaming inventory. So that would be streaming inventory in Hulu, in Paramount Plus, in Peacock, in all of the apps on everybody's Roku. We are going directly to those publishers to access that inventory and get the best rates possible. Now that inventory is often preemptible, so that means that we're accessing. It's not guaranteed to buy, but that's our media buyers' jobs to monitor clearance and stay on top of what we need to get cleared for our advertisers. But the trade-off there is we get very industry low rates for those deals. Similarly, in private marketplace with PMP buys, that's where we're accessing that same inventory via a couple of our DSP partners. So we're accessing that Hulu, NBC, Peacock inventory, but via a private marketplace deal that we've negotiated with our network partners. We also access open marketplace deals via a few of our DSPs. That's going to be the bottom level of CPMs. It's a very different inventory type from the top of the waterfall. This is really where we're getting our lowest CPMs, and it makes a lot of sense for a lot of advertisers to be in that space. Important piece of almost all of my clients' media mixes is accessing biddable inventory, in addition to guaranteed buys, in addition to direct deals with the networks.
And are those lower CPMs because they're kind of closer to sort of like the more brand awareness, general exposure Is that why they would be kind of on the lower side of things? Like, I guess what I'm asking is, like, would a smaller brand gravitate towards those lower CPMs to get exposure for the first time? Or is it more like a bigger brand that doesn't really need to lean on the conversion, and they're more so just looking for that broad brand awareness, like a Nike or an Adidas?
Yeah, that's a good question. In some ways, I'd say both, which isn't a great answer, but I think for a smaller brand, like just starting out in the space, I would probably lean towards the bottom piece of this waterfall. So I'm probably going to start out with some publisher direct deals that are non-guaranteed. I'm going to start out with some open marketplace buys, some private marketplaces where they're going to get the lowest CPM, so the most bang for their buck. And that's where I'm going to start a smaller advertiser out on. A bigger advertiser, a brand buy, we probably will still employ the bottom part of this waterfall. We still want to get a lot of impressions. We still want to get efficient rates. We're still going to look to that, but we're going to pepper in some of the stuff at the top. So the guaranteed buys and the programmatic guaranteed upfronts, we're going to start thinking about that to generate awareness, both in the breadth of impressions, but also in the content that we want to align with the brand.
Awesome. That makes sense.
Great. Yeah, and just highlighting that. So, direct network buys are something that we really value here at BlissPoint Tenuity. So you'll hear a lot about the power of programmatic and biddable inventory. And as I just said, we value that. We value that here. It's part of all of my campaigns. But having direct relationships with the networks really helps us with our negotiating power, helps us get the targeting that we need, the CPMs that we want, and having that kind of mano-a-mano connection with the networks allows a lot of flexibility with our campaigns.
Yeah. And for somebody who's not so familiar with the relationship between the networks, what you have going on with them, perhaps they're not familiar quite with you yet, what are some of the best practices they should keep in mind when exploring buying kind of like this video and audio world?
Yeah, I would just recommend flexibility, especially with launching a campaign. We have a lot of best practices for launching a campaign that we've developed over the years, but we like to test broad and then willow things down as we understand how performance, how things are working out, how performance is looking. But sometimes you don't know what's going to hit in this space. I've had female-focused advertisers where sports does really well, which is just like not intuitive at first blush. Similarly, I've had really male-focused. I had like a really male-focused clothing brand where I found, TLC and Bravo TV doing really well, which again is not what you would expect right off the bat. So I would just really recommend flexibility and thinking about testing and learning as you go.
Yeah. And that's a lesson for all brand owners that I know is the hardest lesson to learn. To listen to the data, particularly if they've invented a product, they invented a brand, they had a target demographic in mind, and they thought they would know how to connect with them. And then lo and behold, it's some back angle that you really weren't expecting. But stay flexible, let the data speak, and let the decisions emerge naturally, and you'll be in a good spot for sure.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. Listen to the data.
Awesome.
Great. The other piece of thinking about different networks we can test, that's one way to stay flexible. The other piece of this and piece of a media plan is targeting. So we have a lot of different targeting options in the streaming world. It's a kind of digital hybrid channel. That's how I like to think of it, but it has a lot of the targeting options that you would see in a true digital channel. So demo targeting, geo targeting, third-party targeting, lookalike targeting, retargeting, that's all available in the space. And those are all things that I'm talking about with my clients each week to think about like what makes the most sense for their campaign.
Awesome.
Great. Okay, so we talked a lot about why you should be in streaming, how you should buy it, but how are you going to measure it? How are you going to listen to that data? So I just mentioned it. Streaming is a digital channel, but it's not quite. It doesn't have quite all the earmarks of a digital channel. So we do not have that click-based performance marketing that you do in a lot of your other digital channels, which poses a problem.
Sure.
How do we measure this campaign? For us at Tenuity, although we can't do click-through attribution, we do direct attribution. So we are matching users from that impression to a response on an advertiser's site. And how do we do that? We do that through our proprietary device graph. So we're collecting information. Each impression that gets served in the audio and the video space, we collect information on each and every impression. So we are getting, device IDs, MAIDs, IPs, DMA, etc. We're getting a lot of information. We are using that information to match to your KPI data to make credible matches from the user who saw the impression and the user that responded on the site. And we've done that through our proprietary device graph, which we've developed over several years, which is actually able to match both from on the same device, but also across devices.
Wow, it's super powerful. So what are the I guess you're gonna get into it right here, but the takeaway KPIs that you do have, what are the final kind of metrics that your clients are eating and breathing and yay, we're up X this week?
Yeah, I mean, it really runs the gamut. I know in the media buying portion, we talked about how different needs for different clients. That's true here too. I have some more brand-based advertisers where we're focusing on like a cost per visit, and we're really focusing on frequency and getting that cost per visit down. I have other advertisers who maybe have more, they're newer to the space or they have more strict guidelines. We might be focusing bottom of the funnel. We might be looking at a cost per purchase. We're looking at revenue goals. That's really possible within the space because we have this direct attribution. We can make credible analyses on revenue goals and bottom of the funnel as well as top of the funnel.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And I just talked about video. The same holds true for audio. So audio is a really interesting space. I'm not going to go fully into it. We have a lot of materials if you guys are interested on deep diving into audio, but for a long time it was hard to measure because of the way that especially podcast buys were done with baked in placement. So if you're a podcast listener, you probably listened to an old podcast and gotten an ad from, I know I have, from like, who knows how many years ago. That doesn't happen as much anymore because of something called DAI. Sorry?
A MySpace ad.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of thing. You look it up and it's been gone for 5 years. I've had that happen. It doesn't happen as much anymore because of digital dynamic ad insertion, which allows us to append pixels to our ads and collect that same information that we're getting on the video side in the audio side. So we're able to understand when an impression is served, who's listening to it, and whether they responded.
Awesome. So this is why, like in Spotify, when you're listening to a podcast, it almost cuts away from the play of the podcast and has like a 30-second, it all looks like a song, but it's like of the advertisement, and then it cuts back. That's the dynamic ad capturing all that engagement and understanding if that was actually listened to in that time.
Yeah, exactly. But still with DAI, we're still able to do host reds, producer reds. So a lot of the advantages that we had with the baked in ads, with the personal endorsements from the hosts, that's still happening in the space, even though it is a little bit more, a little bit smarter than it was a few years ago.
Yeah. I'm going to pause you real quick. We are coming up on the schedule time, but that's yes. I know there's more information here and I know I'm ready to keep going. So for any of those that do need to come back to this, we will have this call available for those publicly on YouTube and through kind of the standard channels. But Katherine, let's keep getting into it. You have my undivided attention.
Okay. Yeah. Let me know if you want me to speed it up because I can certainly do so. But
yeah, we want to hear it.
Okay, great. Okay. Moving to another piece of measurement for us. So we at Tenuity really have a focus on incrementality. We've always known that of the impressions that we serve and of the conversions that we're attributing, a certain amount of them would have occurred anyway. So in the last few years, we've been thinking about how do we get to the true impact of streaming, or where are the conversions coming from that would not have occurred without our campaigns. And we do that through something called always on incrementality. We measure incrementality in a lot of different ways. We do geo holdout tests, we do traditional PSA holdout tests. We have a lot of tools in our arsenal. But one thing that we have that is on all of the time is called always on incrementality. And what that is essentially we have long-term synthetic lift tests running for all of our campaigns all of the time. So we're able to use all of the impression data that we have from our advertisers to create constant synthetic lift tests. So we are measuring the response rate for impressions that we serve from an advertiser against impressions that we serve from other advertisers. So we're creating synthetic control groups out of all of the impressions that we're serving for other advertisers. And using that to get to an answer on incrementality on a continual basis. And that's great just because it allows us to optimize on incrementality, which can be really important for a lot of our advertisers.
Yeah, and huge challenge. Huge challenge.
Yes, yeah. And once we have all that information about who's responding, what's incremental, we want to iterate. So I mentioned this earlier, but my advice to somebody launching in the space is to be flexible, to keep testing, and that's really a principle that we live by at Tenuity. So we want to launch broad and then optimize quickly. So usually within the second week, I'm making optimizations on a campaign. Within the third or fourth week, I'm making major optimizations. We have the data. It comes in quickly in the streaming space. And we recommend optimizing by network, optimizing targeting, optimizing by creative very, very quickly once we launch a campaign.
Wow. Yeah, I love the testing process. You know, that's absolutely key. And are you providing, to what degree is your team involved in this process? Are you handling it all manually in-house, or is this more analytics and then you're relying on the brand itself to kind of make that content editing?
It's a partnership. In our case, I'm meeting weekly with all of my clients to go through performance on their campaigns and make optimizations. I'm making suggestions each week about the campaign, what I want, what I think works with their current budget level. And then I'm, of course, encouraging them to, we have a dashboard that's available in real time to clients, which they can always access and always reach out to me via, Slack and email and get a conversation going about what we recommend.
Yeah, that hands-on support. I think that's, in today's day and age, with so many tech tools to be considered, brands are always having that challenge. Yeah, this sounds great, and I know it's going to get me there, but I don't know what to do to get there. So having that hands-on support, we do it the same here at Northbeam, and it's absolutely essential to actually making actionable takeaways that are going to benefit the bottom line.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a combo of the data and the personal touch. And that's a perfect segue to, how we think about working with partners like Northbeam. So I've mentioned throughout this a lot of the information that's available to us. We get information on every impression that goes out, all of the matches that we're doing. That data is available to clients and to the third-party partners of their choice, like Northbeam. So I think of us as partners in this. What we all want is for the campaign to succeed, for the companies that we work with to succeed, so that we can keep testing and keep learning. And this data is our clients. It's their money on the line. It's not mine. So at the end of the day, I want to share as much data as I can with them and with their trusted partners to get to the answers that we want to get to and to scale our campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely. I think by the Media Buyer Summit, we should emerge with a Tenuity Northbeam case study. on how we collaborated together for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Third-party partners can be like Northbeam can be super important for understanding a campaign. I've had a lot of really relevant and wonderful discussions with my clients, third-party partners, as we were optimizing a campaign. And as a part of that, we do have impression reports, match responses reports. These are two examples of reporting that we provide pretty standardly to our clients and to our third-party partners. To be able to ingest that data and get the information that they need in their chosen platforms.
Amazing. Amazing.
And that is what I have today. Apologies for going over, but I don't have my contact information in this presentation. But if you want to get a hold of me, I know Luca and Autumn have my info, and I'm very happy to answer any questions that come up via email. And thank you.
Yeah, our pleasure. If anybody hanging around has any questions that they want to put in the chat, we'll take a few that are available. I did kind of want to end with just kind of, I love to take this information and apply it, have the brands that are listening, the agencies that are supporting brands, have a sense of, when to apply it and where. So I'm going to describe kind of 3 different brand circumstances, and I'd love for you to just high level speak to little bit about the strategy, a little bit about the budget, a little bit how Tenuity would approach that. So the first brand we're going to start with, it's a mom and pop retailer gone digital. They have a loyal audience geographically around their area. They are now moving to the digital landscape for the first time. So they're exploring all new marketing channels. They have an overall marketing budget of around $20,000 a month. And they're really looking to kind of just find their footing and get a sense of what the digital output really has to offer. What would you say to that brand?
Yeah, 20,000 overall, or just for streaming?
I'm sorry, 20,000 for streaming. We'll go 50,000 overall. And then actually the sub question is, of a brand in that circumstance with $50,000 budget, the percentage of overall advertising, would you say commonly falls around that 20-30 split, or where would you see that budget being broken out if a brand had around 50 overall?
Yeah, it really depends on the type of brand. I would say I would want to know with that type of budget, we would want to know about the demo, right? Streaming can be really great for clients that want to hit a like really that sweet spot of 25 to 54. It's a lot of like adults watching Hulu and Peacock after work. Like it's a great space for those kind of retailers. I would probably start smaller with a brand like that. So with those lower CPM, we want to get broad. We might want to think about open marketplace buys. Think about publisher direct, get more bang for their buck if I could. And then also think about targeting, like, am I hitting the right demo for them? So, especially in the programmatic space, there's a lot of targeting available, and we could think about that kind of thing. But yeah, with a smaller budget, of course, we want to make sure that they still have a really diversified mix, and we definitely want to be aware of that on our end as well.
Sure. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Now, next brand was just on Shark Tank. They are exploding, but they're still new. They're building their operations landscape. They have a key offering. They connected with the demographic. They are trending. They are growing by the day, and they are spending $150,000 to $200,000 in advertising dollars per month for the first time. How would they approach this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great situation for streaming, to be honest. To live kind of in that middle of that waterfall, I'd recommend we test broad. A really web-focused advertiser like the one you're describing is kind of perfectly poised for success in the streaming space. So I would use a lot of the same techniques. I would want to think about what's their demo? Can we get the right targeting? Can we get the right networks on the phone? But that's a really good situation to test broadly in the streaming space.
Awesome. That's good to know. The last brand I'll throw you is, we'll call it a legacy brand. This brand has been around. Everybody knows the name. It's a cornerstone name. But they haven't really ruffled any feathers in a long time. They're super connected. They have the budget, if their board can justify it, or if you could justify it to the board, the budget's there, but they've always kind of leaned on sort of their bread and butter, what got them there, since the 90s. How would you describe that brand?
Yeah, well, that's another good place to be in. Although maybe a little bit more of a complicated question than your second scenario. But with that, you can kind of go for the whole waterfall. We might think about some guaranteed deals. We might think about measuring brand awareness. Thinking about getting some brand lift studies. I didn't talk about that in this presentation, but we do those as well. We can think about awareness. Also think about DR techniques with publisher direct deals or programmatic deals. I think all of that's on the table. I would say for a more legacy brand where there's already a lot of awareness in the marketplace, we may want to focus more on that incrementality question. So where they already have a lot going on and a lot of people are already aware, we want to think about where can we get the eyeballs that don't know about it? Where can we get more incremental conversions for their marketing dollars.
Yeah, makes sense. And we'll save that brand lift test for the deep dive that we follow up in the summit on September 7th, where we speak about this and more. Katherine, that concludes the webinar. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for going over. I appreciate it so much. For all of you that hung around, we really appreciate it. We hope you got a lot of valued information after this. And stay tuned because this is weekly, so we're going to keep this coming. So thanks again. All of this information should be followed up. This webinar will be publicly available. The ability to connect with Katherine and the Tenuity team will be publicly made available. Thank you so much. Good luck in the upcoming weeks.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate the time.
All the best.